All right, we are live. Um, it's looking like 26 seconds of live already for some reason. I don't exactly know why that is. If you can hear me in the chat, feel free to say you can. Um, I have got Mike Mangold on. We're going to introduce him relatively shortly here. And he is a victim of false arrest and police brutality. And he claims he was just waiting for a movie. Sorry, waiting for a bus, and it's all relating to a movie he was trying to see with his like pass, I guess. We'll get into that relatively soon. This is brought to you by Liberty Under Attack Publications and LibertyProfessionals.com. I will tell you more about those people at the end. But with all that being said, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, I want you to introduce yourself. What is your general life outlook? What are you an MD in? I saw that you have a physician clinic. Is that the case?
No, I did have a family practice clinic in West Bend, but because of decreasing reimbursements from the government, I ended up closing the clinic. But in the meantime, I got an invitation to teach medicine and medical English to med students in Nicaragua. And that's the premise of one of my books called My Worst Thanksgiving Ever. The 6-year anniversary is coming up this Thanksgiving. But anyway, before the clinic, I was an ER physician. I also worked in urgent care, media care, occupational medicine clinics. I worked in several or a couple community health centers. I also volunteered at for medical missions in Mexico. I did 2 of those. And I also volunteered at inner city clinics, including one here in Milwaukee called City on a Hill. I did that for the ER and the other stuff for 20 years, and then decided to open the clinic in West Bend, and then it flopped.
All
And
right.
my general outlook on life, I'm pretty optimistic, but I'm also a survivor. I have a lot of endurance. Um, I'm clever. I can get through many situations based on what I've already been through in life.
All right, gotcha. So why don't we talk about that? What have you been through?
Well, I've been through. Um, the worst was Thanksgiving night in Nicaragua. My 12-year-old son and I were up in Managua for Thanksgiving dinner with a non-governmental organization called Casa Ben Linder. Um, my son was kidnapped, and I spent 2 nights trying to find him. And as it turns out, it was my then wife, Angie, who was back in Wisconsin at the time, working together with the American Embassy to get him back to the United States. He didn't want to go, but since he didn't want to go and I didn't want to go back either, they worked together to kidnap him. But I didn't find that out until the second day. The second night, I was on my way to the embassy at after 10 o'clock, and I got mugged 3 times, each one worse than the preceding one. Eventually, the third one, I was stripped of everything, including my sandals and my wedding ring, which, as I say in the book, I really miss those sandals, um, and left for dead. So after that, I was then homeless in Nicaragua for another month before I could get beg enough money to get back home.
All right. So, I mean, that experience alone, like the fact that she worked with the government to uh, essentially claim your son, that must make you already sort of distrust the state in some sort of inherent way.
I've distrusted the state since I was a teenager, and I think it's because my dad was physically and emotionally abusive to me. So I didn't define it early on, but I got this very, very distrustful of the government. Very, very distrustful of any authority. Question authority is a little button I used to wear.
All right. So, and just by the way, for everybody who needs to know, this interview is taking place at a Planet Fitness because essentially this is the place with a decent enough internet connection that he could do it. You know, any port in a storm.
It's not so. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's not so bad here, actually. I'm in a massage chair. I got my Starbucks coffee, and they're passing out free bagels at
Oh,
Planet
cool.
Fitness. So it's all's good.
I mean, that's not very keto, but cool. Like, I sort of,
Oh,
I have a story about bagels. I started to go to Starbucks because the place in Spokane that I was didn't have good internet, so I sympathize with that. But I started to go to Starbucks and I tried to live as close to keto as possible. So I used the app to not only get free bagels from the Starbucks points, but they let you get basically as much cream cheese and butter as you wanted. So I could still make the meal keto, even though the primary thing that I actually paid money for was a fucking bagel.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
good idea, but it definitely like I think at one point I depleted their stock of cream cheese, which I felt bad about, and I started to sort of like rein it in after that. But it's I'm not a bagel person normally because they're very carby, but I sort of made do by adding a shit ton of butter and cheese to it, and that made it keto-ish. Anyway,
yeah. I can relate because basically I'm on the intermittent fasting diet. So
ah,
between 11 o'clock at night and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't eat. I'll have bulletproof coffee and
mm.
collagen protein, but otherwise I stay in a ketogenic state for that amount of time every day.
All right. Well, so let's talk about something then. You say you were waiting for the bus when this happened.
Yeah, let me. Actually, I was walking from one bus stop to another, but started out. I have a movie pass for 12 movies a month at a movie theater at Mayfair Mall in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, which is a suburb of northwest suburb of Milwaukee. And I had a date. We were at the movie theater. I It was cold. She had to go take care of some business after the movie. This is about 10 o'clock at night. I went and got the bus. Now there are three buses that show up at the stop at the Mayfair Mall. I got on number 21, which headed east on a major street in Milwaukee called North Avenue. I had to get back to my place, and my date was going to meet up with me at my place when she got done with other business. So I'm on this bus headed east. I get off on 60th Street to catch another bus, 76 bus, headed south, which would have dropped me off about 2 or 3 blocks from where I live. So I get off the bus stop. I put my I have fitness trackers. I turn those on, so I stood at the bus stop for maybe a minute, and then I checked the bus tracker. Next 76 bus wasn't going to be there for 23 minutes. So I started walking south to the next bus stops. Um, and I wanted to go as far as I could before the bus actually came. And I do that for 2 reasons, or for 3 reasons. One is I get more points with the fitness trackers. Secondly, I like to walk. And third, it keeps me warm compared to just standing. So anyway, I got about 50 steps south, and a squad car pulls up. Actually, two squad cars pull up. Three cops approached me. One one says something about public urination, and then didn't say anything more. But he went around trying to look for a puddle, I guess. The the cop in the middle, she approached me, and I asked what's going on, and she said, "We somebody called in and said that you were prowling around their property." All right, that's key because saying somebody reported and called in is only partially true. What I believe, and I can't prove it until I get out to the bus stop again, is that they have cameras. The Wauwatosa police have cameras at the bus stops. And if they think they can make money, quick money, off of somebody like me, then they go out and um, get them. So somebody called, but I think that somebody was whoever monitors the video surveillance camera.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me because I mean that's just another possible way to extort, and the state is well known for just hiding in certain places and waiting for a chance to essentially pounce. They're very predatory.
You know what, Jeremy? This happened. Something similar happened to me in June. I was at the same stop at 10 o'clock at night, and I was just standing there, and actually I'd walked around and looked at the area because I'd never been there before. Squad car pulls up. Three cops get out, accuse me of public urination. One goes and checks around the area for a puddle, I guess. And you know what? He actually went to the place that I had been standing. So they knew beforehand where to look. Well, after I handed over my ID, and I did that at the time, uh, handed over my ID. They did background check, that cleared. They sent me on my way. So really, what they're trying to do is do the background check so they can find some way to arrest you and make money off of the arrest.
Yeah, like having a mark.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got to case the joint.
yeah, and that's a lot easier than actually going out and capturing real criminals. So that's a easier, much faster way to make money.
All right. So on that score, then, um, first off, how much are they charging you? And also, I saw that the charge had been changed since the time of the citation issuance.
Yeah, there's actually two citations. One is for prowling, loitering slash prowling prohibited, whatever that means. I wasn't prowling. In fact, I was moving most of the time. That's $439. The second is for resisting an officer because the only thing I did to resist, and that's air quotes, is um, ask them what the charge was, what the charge was. Well, they won't tell you. So I said, I'll hand you over my ID as soon as you tell me why I'm being arrested. And he goes, I'm arrested. Oh, the third guy, um, Officer Mills is his name. The initial woman who came and said and confronted me, her name was Entire, but she was actually very polite during the whole thing. So Mills says, as soon as I asked him what I was being arrested for, said, "I'm arresting you for resisting an officer." So that was
Okay.
it. So then they handcuffed me and kidnapped me.
So first off, for anybody who doesn't know, resisting an officer is a bullshit charge that they slap on people. Additionally, um, loitering is originally a Jim Crow law designed to basically jail black people because the 13th Amendment still allows for forced servitude in repayment for a crime. So basically, they switched the prison systems to be the new slave camps, and they still make the same amount of money and products that they otherwise would have. They just have a more ethical veneer over it. But it's a very thin veneer, as we see here, because you were thrown in jail, not prison, because you haven't been like convicted or anything yet, but you were thrown in jail for how long? Because they claimed you were loitering and or resisting an officer, which is, by the way, totally ethical if the officer is acting on bullshit.
Yeah, I wasn't. We went to the police station, the jail, but since they were citations, and not actually criminal charges, I didn't end up in jail. Okay, I have
Okay.
court. I have court. Go before a judge December 30th, which gives me plenty of time to fight this. But in terms of the um, Jim Jim Crow laws, that's how they got free labor for their to build the roads.
Yes.
The chain gang was the pre or the subsequent to slavery. They moved from the plantation to the chain gangs.
And not just making roads, but nowadays they're also making license plates. So they're helping police track everybody. They're making, textiles, garments, everything, and for very, very small amounts of money that are barely enough to buy like ramen and Doritos and make a prison pizza.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
it's extremely fucked up. So, all right. So, what's your new charge at this particular point? Because you say it's no longer public urination. Are they just accusing you of loitering and prowling and resisting an officer?
Yes, yeah, those are
Okay,
the only two. The urination thing didn't didn't come through because there was no puddle. Apparently,
right. Kind of hard to prove. So basically, they took you for somebody who would be easy to sort of hustle in this way.
twice now.
All right, and so you say that there's body cam footage. Do you happen to know the officers' names and badge numbers?
I don't know the badge numbers. The one who first approached me is Intyre, Intyre, and the second one, who's actually aggressive, is Mills. Is Officer Mills. Now I'll get their badge numbers in the next few days.
Gotcha. Okay, so because the reason I ask is because if somebody wanted to file like a Freedom of Information Act or whatever on the footage from the body cams, they would be well within their reason and right to do so, especially since these quote public servants were using their quote public service to try to humiliate somebody in public and extort them for money. If everything you're saying is true, that's exactly what they were doing. So you say they beat you. Was it just one punch, and also, um, did that require stitches? Were you in the hospital at all?
No, actually, he didn't punch me. I thought that's what happened because it happened so quickly. Let me back up to when they slapped the handcuffs on me. I have arthritis in both wrists.
Right.
In May of this year, I broke my left shoulder. So riding in a car on a hard seat with handcuffs on was painful. So
Mm-hmm.
we get to the police station and they handcuff my left arm, of all things, the one that was broken, to a bench. So I started 62-year-old retired.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up mildly. Would you mind repeating everything up to the bench?
Up to the bench.
They handcuffed you
Okay.
to a
So
bench.
yeah, they handcuffed me to a bench, and I started complaining about the pain. And I said, "Listen, I'm a 62-year-old retired disabled vet. I'm not a harm to anybody. I'm not a threat to anybody. Unhandcuff me at least." Now, this is key. Within a second, Officer Mills came over to me, did something to my eye. I thought it was a punch at first, and I started bleeding. And I have pictures of the blood on my pants on my phone. Then I realized I wrote up a summary for a producer at Fox 6 News, and there's no love lost there either. But I wrote up a summary, and then I thought, wait a minute, that laceration over my left eyebrow isn't from a punch; it was from a razor blade. In other words, he did this, and he must have practiced because he was very good at it, very quick. He sliced my eyebrow, and it was very precise. It was right along the hairline, so it was essentially covered up as the scar's going to be covered up.
Well, that's in. I'm again. This is like his story. I don't 100% know that there was a razor blade used, but That's an interesting allegation. So you're saying like he hit a razor blade in his hand and like hit you quickly, but also cut you at the same time.
No, didn't hit, just cut.
Oh,
Just cut. It happened so quick. He was back at his desk within 2 seconds of when he started out. Then, at that point, Officer Intire became disgusted, and she came over, unhandcuffed me, um, wiped the blood away, used an antiseptic, and then put a dressing on it. And she had the most disgusted look on her face. She didn't like what happened, and
okay,
she will be the one to testify about Mill's behavior.
okay. So she's already agreed to testify, or
No, I haven't contacted her, but if she's under oath, she's got to.
okay. So you plan on contacting Entire about this situation, and you plan on fighting this. I understand you have a fundraiser set up already. Do you already have legal counsel, or is that fundraiser so that you can obtain it?
That's so that I can obtain it. I have an appointment with a criminal um, attorney on December 5th. And I did that because I get my disability payment on the 3rd of December. But I could meet with them sooner and get this subpoena stuff and everything like that a lot quicker if I came up with $1,500 up front. So that's why I have the fundraiser.
Gotcha. All right. And is there any place where people can see the public arrest record? Because that would be a way to get information about the department, the arresting officer, all of that stuff.
Yeah, since there's citations, it's not on the Wisconsin CCAP, which is how you access court documents and legal documents in Wisconsin. I don't know if there's a website where it can be found, but I'll look.
All right. Because one of the key features of like I guess modern cop blocking is public records searches, and you try to find the information. And I wouldn't mind finding out more about the arresting officer since you didn't get his name. It's always amusing when cops like claim they have the right to your name but then don't give theirs, or claim that they have a right to your driver's license number but won't give their badge number. Like, to me, unless it's 100% reciprocal, that's total trash. So basically, one of the citations was gone, or did they just never cite you for piss?
They never cited me.
So they changed the citation on the spot just so that they have an excuse to stick something to you and be worth their time coming over to extort somebody.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's very interesting. Because I'm looking at the blood on these pictures, and it doesn't paint a good picture of whoever was responsible for the blood. And ultimately, what I'm seeing is that there was enough coming out that if that person hadn't have done something, you might have needed to go to the hospital. Because that's why I was asking if you had been to the hospital.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't deep enough. Basically, it was Mill's way of getting me to shut up about what pain I was in.
Gotcha. Well, by the way, do you mind tipping your camera down just a little?
Yeah, I
The
started the massage chair.
Gotcha. The
Is that better?
So the idea here is you want remediation, or do you just want the citation not to stick?
I've gotten some really good advice from a friend of mine on Facebook. Can I say her name?
I, I mean, if she's okay with it, I really
Oh,
like any information is fine.
okay. Yeah, her name is Laura Mann, and her fiance is an attorney in Florida. So he he and she can only give me advice. They can't, represent me or anything. And
Right.
she said the first thing I need to do is to get the charges dismissed, and then sue them for not only assault and battery, but for trespassing, I believe. And there's one other one I can't recall right now.
Gotcha.
It's
All right. So your current plan right now is to, before December 30th, mount a significant enough legal defense that you can successfully fight this in court and get the charges dismissed. And then afterward, you'll be seeking remediation. So if that's the case, is this 1,500 enough to cover both, or just the prior thing?
No, the lawyer who will do the civil suit will do it on contingency. So the $1,500 is just for the criminal lawyer.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. Well, so I guess then my only question is, do you have anything else you want to say?
Um, yeah, there's one really important thing. One of the books I wrote in my Thanksgiving, I call it my Thanksgiving worst Thanksgiving trilogy, is the prequel to my worst Thanksgiving ever, and that's called Mythomania, a psychodrama, and it explains a lot about how basically our society reflects and enables sociopathic behavior in the population and elects sociopathic politicians into office. So it's a terrible cycle. Um, in it, I kind of predicted what happened to me on Sunday, and that is the statement that the prevailing attitude in this country is that if it doesn't happen, if it didn't happen to me, it doesn't happen. Well, guess what? It happened to me. I never bought into the prevailing attitude, but I still have friends, especially on Facebook, who buy into it and told me I should just have handed over my ID, even though the Supreme Court ruled in 1983 in a case called Florida versus Royer that is well within my constitutional rights not to show my ID if I haven't been charged and to walk away from the encounter without saying a word.
Right.
So
Well,
remember that. Yeah, Florida versus Royer.
and there's also the Glick decision, which is you have the legal authority to film any public official in the pursuit of their duties. So if my advice to anyone out there is, if you see a cop, doesn't matter if they're interacting with you or not. If you see a cop, pull out your phone. It doesn't matter if they're interacting with you. It doesn't matter if they're interacting with anyone you know. If you see it, you pull out your phone and you try to record it to a live service. There's also, I interviewed another person on this channel for an app called Organize uh, App, which I think that's the entire name of the app at this point. But it's basically an app where you can rate and review police encounters, and you can rate policemen on a scale of 1 to 5, and or well, interactions with them anyway. I don't think you can rate individual policemen yet, but I like the point of this is that when you get these on accountability sites, when you start talking about this in very specific terms and have the evidence to back it up, you can always make these sorts of cases much easier. So you're gonna wait for the body cam footage, but in the like, for anybody out there, if you have your phone and you pull it out, you can have your own footage, and you won't have to rely on them being willing to give the thing that's ultimately going to incriminate them, which sometimes they don't even do. Sometimes they claim it was off and delete the footage or some shit like that. It's pretty pathetic and craven how U.S. police operate these days. So okay, then let me ask you one more thing. Uh, let's say they don't drop the charges. Let's say they keep the charges. How far are you willing to take this? Is this something you feel strongly enough about to, for instance, take it to the Supreme Court?
Oh yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it as far as I can. But I'm going to ask for a jury trial, and depending on the decision of my peers, I'll appeal that. And if that doesn't work, I'll go to the state Supreme Court. And if that doesn't work, I'll go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Um, and there are lawyers that will do that, you know, without having to pay them.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, if that's all you have to say, do you have anything you want to plug? You write books. You're involved in several things. Is there anything you want to plug before you leave?
Yeah, the fundraiser is the most important to me right now, and my you can find me on Facebook at MK Mangold, Mangold. The other things I want to plug are my books. You can find all of them on Amazon, Lulu, and Smashwords. Mythomania, My Worst Thanksgiving Ever, and the sequel called Desperately Seeking Cereal, which was actually kind of fun to write. Um, I did have a series of books that were um, published when I was in Nicaragua. The cornerstone book is called How to Think Like a Doctor. Um, my favorite is one called Barefoot Doctors. It's basically a pamphlet on how we can solve access to healthcare around the world, no matter the income level or standard of living. And the third one is the Spanish version of How to Think Like a Doctor called Como Pensar como un Doctor.
Gotcha. All right. So with that all being said, I have the link to his fundraiser in the description. If you'd like to help him, there are many ways to do that. But thank you for your time. I hope you can get whatever remediation you need and get these charges dropped.
No, thank you, Jeremy. That was very pleasurable and very necessary.
All right. Well, with all that being said, this was brought to you by, sorry, Liberty Under Attack Publications. It's also brought to you by Liberty Professionals. Liberty Under Attack Publications is a publishing house. They will do binding, voiceover, narration. They'll do graphics. They'll do your whole deal, and they do all of this for a relatively low price. So if you're interested in getting that set up, tell them Jeremiah sent you for 20% off a full service deal. They also have a host of books that they publish, obviously, and if you want to get your copy of any one of these books, feel free. I normally have an ad read in front of me, but I don't right now, so I'm just going off the cuff. Liberty Professional. Liberty Professionals is Finian Cornelison out of Virginia. He does skip tracing. He does missing persons investigations. And he also is a private security consultant. So if you decide you want to get your home and business secured, feel free to hit him up. He has very reasonable rates too. But these streams are only made possible by people who support them and who support the sponsors. So feel free to hit up any of those people with the links in the description. There's a more complex description of how that works right there. Anyway, thank you for joining me. And with all that being said, if you have an instance of police brutality that you want covered, if you were personally a victim of police brutality, hit me up. I am taking interviews, and if any of you have anything you want to say, feel free to. Be well. Smash the state. There are many, many cops out there just like this, and they all need to be held accountable for their scummy actions.